We're here in Martelinas, and we're going to be talking with John Gurbacs about his art, about his life, about many things that have gone on about the Ybor art and Tampa art. So let's start with John. Tell us your name, how you say your name in Hungarian, and I also want to know what year you were born.
I was born on Halloween in 1947 in Budapest, Hungary. When I was 9 years old, we came to the United States. There was a revolt in Hungary at the time, and they were trying to overthrow the right-wing communist regime, which was installed by Stalin at the end of the First World War. So we had relatives. My dad's sister was an American citizen, so she kind of sponsored us and encouraged us to escape. So the time came, when it was still, the borders were still not sealed. So we took a train to a border town and then walked about 40 miles to the Austrian border. By next morning we were in Austria. Stayed in army camps, military camps in Austria, which is where they put the refugees. And by February 57, we landed in Cleveland, Ohio, which my aunt and uncle lived. And so that's how we came to the United States.
Okay. So one other thing, when you came here, could you speak English?
No.
Were you doing art at that time?
Yes, I was an only child and I was always drawing. I didn't really paint until I was already in high school, but I drew. And all my relatives, since I was the only kid in the family, it's a very small family, they encouraged me to draw. And I would show them my drawings, and sometimes they'd give me, a little change to make it look like I'm selling artwork or something.
And what age were you at this time?
9, and earlier, 6, 7, 8, 9. I was always drawing.
So when you started school in America, did they have art in the schools at that time?
Not really. There was an elementary school in Cleveland. I did draw a lot in class, and everybody thought I was really good. So they would hold my drawings up to show the class, like, here's a little boy that just came from another country, and look at his drawings. So I guess that was like a positive reinforcement also.
So you, at this time, you weren't speaking English, correct?
Right.
So you were also isolated, so art played a big part in your isolation.
And I learned the English language by watching television.
What particular show?
I caught all the 50s, Mickey Mouse Club, Lone Ranger, Sky King. I think Disney already had a show, the Mickey Mouse Club. I was watching every day at 5 o'clock. Mickey Mouse Club would come on.
So how old were you when you started school here in America? Exactly, you remember?
Yeah, I was 9 years old.
9 years old.
I just turned 9.
So what grade did they put you in? You couldn't speak English?
Third grade, finished the 3rd grade.
All right, and you just picked up English pretty quickly?
Yes, by watching television mostly.
All right. What's the first thing you can remember in your childhood that influenced you into art? I know you drew, but did you go to any museums? Did anybody in your family paint? Anything of that nature?
Well, my aunt was a hairdresser and also a flower decorator, so that's about the nearest. And all the females in my family would do knitting or making blankets and things. So I don't know if that had anything to do with that, but it was mostly the fact that I could entertain myself and be quiet by drawing.
Okay. What did your father do for a living?
Mechanic.
He was a mechanic.
Yes.
Did he own a shop or work for somebody?
He worked at the automotive factory in Budapest, and when we came to America, he worked at gas stations. And
Could he speak English when he came here?
No. Well, very little, very little.
Okay.
He did speak a little bit because he was in the service, but so anyway, he met another Hungarian guy from New York who had some kind of an accident. He got injured and got a good sum of money out of it. He was in a car accident or something. He was okay, but he got a large amount of money, and he met my dad, and they decided to be partners and open up a gas station in Miami. Now at the time, Miami was the tourist destination. There was no, Disney World or Epcot or nothing. It was Miami.
What year would this be?
57, no, 59, excuse me,
All right.
1959.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1959, we moved to Miami, and then I went to Catholic school for a couple of years, a number of years.
Any bad experiences at Catholic school?
No,
Okay.
not really. I didn't get, molested or anything.
Right. Well, so also, did they didn't have art at this school, this Catholic school, right?
It was mostly religion and history and stuff. But,
So-
but they were actually, it was very good in a lot of ways, because you did learn a certain type of discipline and an order, like a structure or something, although you rebelled against that, but later on that came back indirectly as a kind of a disciplinary thing.
When the rebellion years had subsided, right?
Right.
Okay. So, formal education for art, when did that start?
I was in the art club in high school.
All
I
right.
went to Miami Edison High School. It's one of the old high schools in Miami. And they had an art club called the Titian Club. So I was in the Titian Club for 2 years. And it's in the yearbook, stuff here, then, and everybody standing around holding up their artwork. It's in the yearbook. So I did some painting, and I also got involved with doing commercial art. At one time I was going to go into commercial art, and when I went to junior college, my first couple
Where
of
is this
classes,
at? Where is junior?
Miami-Dade Junior College.
Okay. Good.
So that was, so I took commercial art courses. And then I took some fine arts courses, and my fine arts courses, of course, were a lot more fun again. You're doing drawing, nude models, design, painting, abstract art, whatever, So I switched to, from commercial art to more of the fine arts.
This is, okay. So do you remember any of the teachers you had? Were any of the teachers very
Yes.
good that you can remember?
Absolutely. That's interesting you bring that up, because over the period of my career, I always met people that did a lot of accomplishment in the arts. One teacher I had was Robert Teeley, and he's actually still alive, and he's had shows in New York. He's a sculptor, and he was a big guy. He used to play football for the Dallas Cowboys, and I had him for design class. Dwayne Hanson, the famous pop art sculptor. I didn't have him for any classes, but he was in the same building, and I remember seeing in his studio, he was doing the first fiberglass sculpture figures that he became famous for.
So, what other schools have you gone to, other than that?
I went to, I got my Associate of Arts degree from Miami-Dade, and then my junior, senior, I went to Florida State University.
For art?
Yeah.
And did you finish there?
Yeah, I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. I was accepted into a special, they just started their Bachelor of Fine Arts degree program, because before they just had BA. So BFA was, you had to actually submit work, and the faculty would select people that they would, consider like more advanced to be accepted into that program.
Any artists there that you were teaching that you can remember were any influence on you?
Yeah, a couple of them. Jerry Rosenblum was a hard edge painter, so I painted hard edge for a while, with stripes, vibrating colors, taping off edges with sealers and things.
Are any of these paintings still in existence?
No. And that's interesting. I've lost the track of so much work over the years. Some of them I know, like I had a gallery that folded in Atlanta, and I had 5 big paintings that I never got them back. I don't know what happened to them.
What year would this be?
This was after my US effort. Well, let me finish telling you about the, so when I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts, went back to Miami, lived at home for a year, got married, and then I was accepted into graduate school at the University of South Florida. So I came to Tampa in 1971, and immediately I started seeing famous artists, because they just started the graphic studio program a couple of years earlier. So they already had, people like Rauschenberg, Rosenquist, Jim Dine. They were already working with graphic studio, doing projects.
And you met these people?
I met Rauschenberg. I remember I was doing the silk screen class at night, and I see a guy walk by in the hallway, and I go, wow, it's familiar. I realized it was Rauschenberg.
Any conversation?
No, not at that time, because it was like
So you met him again later?
later on I met him, yes. So when I was in USF, I was not a very good student, but I did learn a lot. Had some real good teachers. And then I worked construction during the summer. A friend of mine that was in my class had a job working in Temple Terrace, building apartment complexes. So he says, you know, just come down and tell him you want to talk to Frank, and tell him, you know, Claude told you to come down here. Claude was his friend of mine. And so I did that, and the guy says, okay, he goes, go get your hard hat, some tools, and come back a couple days, you know, sign you up. So just like that, I'm working construction.
How long did that last?
Well, on and off, it lasted 15 years, but at the time it was only a summer job. And immediately I started, of course you're always an artist no matter what you do, you know. So I started noticing all the construction material as being beautiful for some reason, you know, lumber piled up, tar paper thrown on, twisted metal, all this stuff. But I didn't digest it directly at the time. It was just kind of in your mind, you know, just experiencing it for the first time, you know. And then later on, those images would find themselves into my work, you know.
Okay. So tell us about your first experience in Ybor with art. Can you remember that far back?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell us what year this would have been.
Seems like yesterday. So we did so I was working summers, went back to grad school a semester, dropped out again. I kept doing that for a number of years. Then at one point I just says, I'm not doing this anymore. You know, there's too much politics going on and stuff. So I said, I met a couple other friends, and they says, hey, you know, we can get a studio in Ybor City.
Who are these friends?
So we did. Tom Kettner was the main guy. And Tom was already working for Rauschenberg at the time. I met Tom in one of the silk screen classes out at USF.
Right.
So we got a studio right here on 7th Avenue.
You know where I'm located?
Yeah, it's actually the first floor of the Crest building now.
Okay.
Which is interesting. Before that, well, it might be a space south, but before that it was Joffrey's, which was a coffee dessert place.
Mm-hmm.
And they opened up a store here in Ybor City. They were in Hyde Park originally, but they were a number of years also.
Okay.
So we had a studio on 7th Avenue, and you know, we used to put our work up out in the windows, people to see walking down the street. Started doing some outdoor art shows also.
What was Ybor like at that time?
Well, nothing like it is today. It's like pretty much the daytime was still, you know, pretty busy and stuff. Then in the evenings, you probably had about 1/10 of the bars, few restaurants. So literally, you could walk down the street after dark and go a couple of blocks before you found a little bar open or something. Or one of your friends lived in the studio.
Okay.
It was very. And then a couple of years later, we wound up, and I was a color field painter at this time now. So I was
Explain to people what a color field painter is.
I was working on canvas on the floor, pouring colors, letting the action of paints take place. So all these images, then they would dry, then you would staple them up or look at them, you know, what they look like. And all these random shapes and forms that were caused by the action of painting itself started looking like things that I would see around me. Mm-hmm. Certain shapes looked like, you know, folded shapes or sky motions, water motions. So at one point I decided that I'm going to start painting those more directly, like more representationally.
Mm-hmm.
So
what year would this have been?
75, 76, around that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then around that time I got another studio in Ybor, this time associated with the Hillsborough Community College, which was pretty new at the time. Jerry Meatyard was the head of the art department there at the time. And he had a friend that had owned a building, which is right down the street from the Columbia. It's a 3-story cigar building. It's now the Lion's Eye Clinic.
Yeah, I know the place.
But that's the same building. And so we had a studio there, a group of artists. And I was there for a number of years.
Can you name any of the artists that were in there?
Yes, Jerry Meatyard, David Dye, Richard Sorrentino, Steve Holm, Roberta Schofield, Bruce Sargent.
At this time was
Rocky Kester.
Okay.
And I think, and Roddy also, Roddy Reed was also in it. He's a well-known ceramicist from Ybor.
Now, were you around when upstairs south and upstairs north were here? Did you have any interaction with those people?
I knew some of the people that lived, I think like Mary Lemley was one of the people that lived up here.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Sargent lived above the Ritz. Yeah. So I remember visiting artist studios even back then.
So let's go back a little bit. What do you think was the first major show that you were in that you felt like you might be getting somewhere or doing something?
Well, probably when I started winning some prizes at outdoor art shows. Now, one of the, so when they built Ybor Square, for instance, that was a guy named Harris Mullen. He actually had a magazine also published, a monthly magazine at the time. So they had an art festival right in the courtyard, and I guess it was like $20 application. I think something like 50, 60 artists were set up, like an outdoor, the first art festival. And I won Best of Show with one of my color field paintings. So that's always nice when you win $500, $600. That was the first prize.
So you won an award with this painting, and then you changed from that style, right? How long did you change after that?
Right. It was a color field painting, but I was already heading towards, more of a representation of.
Did that give you pause when you won for that, and then you're already trying to transition to something else?
I was still doing both. And then at one point, I just stopped doing the color field paintings.
Do you know why? Why you stopped it? Just didn't feel like it was right, or what?
I felt like I'd gone as far as I could with it, because I'd gotten what I needed out of it, which was basically to think in abstract terms. See, now I paint a representational style, but if you see my work, it's not like a traditional, kind of a way of, figure ground and.
So we're going to go into your work here shortly.
Sure.
But tell us some of the nice commissions you get. You ever had really good commissions, done some stuff that you really are proud of? Can you speak about some of those?
Sure. Sure. Well, back to that prize thing. So when I won that prize, part of the thing was not only did you get the money, but you had a one-man show in Hyde Park at a gallery.
You know the name of the gallery?
It was called the Trend House.
Not there now. So.
And then later on, that became the Florida Center for Contemporary Art. And then a number of years later, it moved to Ybor City, which was Brad Cooper's old space.
Did you have any interaction with Brad Cooper while you were here?
Yeah, he showed some of my work.
Okay. You were in several of his shows, or?
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So then I started getting some commissions also, and had some one-man shows, made some sales. And then one of my early big commissions was in the early '80s. I got the commission to do the mural for the Tampa General Hospital.
I've seen that.
Children's Medical Center.
Yeah, it's still there.
Yes. Yes, it's a wraparound mural. It's 8 feet by 32 feet. And it's composed of panels that fit the wall configuration. So it goes in and comes out, and goes in and goes on the back wall, turns in again. It's called a wraparound.
Mm-hmm.
I actually hired a guy to build the panels for me.
Why did you have to use panels instead of just painting on the wall?
You can't do that. You don't paint on the hospital walls. It was actually, the panels were constructed out of 2x2s and untempered masonite. with double prime canvas stretched over it. And then all the sections fit together. So it's one scene, but it zigzags around the room.
And it's still there, people want to see it, right?
And the theme was, they were going with a water theme, so I proposed doing a coral reef scene.
Yes.
Which is what I did. So I had some fish that were 3 or 4 feet in length, you know, like close-up views of fish and different coral formations, sea fans, clownfish, angelfish, all kinds of.
So what came after them?
Well, I was still. No, I didn't have my studio at that time in Ybor already. I was there for 4 or 5 years. Well, I was just doing more work, you know.
Well, I think I have a picture of you standing next to some of your work where the paintings are like 12 feet high or something. What is that all about?
That was another commission that I got, which was very important. So this was in, well, this is already in 2004, I believe. No, 2006. So I had some shows in art public places. I got some commissions in Volusia County. So they invited me to apply for, they were doing this big ocean center. It's a big convention center, kind of like the Tampa Bay Center here in Daytona Beach. It's on A1A, US 1. So the ocean is literally across the street. Beautiful modern building. They have conventions there and fairs and all kinds of things. So I get a call from this gentleman, and he said, you know, hey, goes John, you know, you don't know me, but we've seen some of your work, and we'd like you to submit a proposal to do a mural for us. So I did that, and they loved the idea. So I did a painting which was made out of 6 sections. And the sections were joined together, so it's one large painting. It's like 12 by 13 and a half feet. And I painted in my studio, like one panel at a time, because my studio is not that. I can't put all those panels out at the same time. But I have an open carport, so I was able to work there.
What area is your studio in?
It's up in Sulphur Springs.
And you've been there how long?
Since 2000. And I also got the commission for where they built the pump station up in Sulphur Springs, which is historical springs up there. And they built a pool facility and a pump house. There's a $5 million hydraulic pump that runs on computer information, and they can pump water from the upper part of the river, north of Rowlett Park, to south of Sulphur Springs. It helps the flow of the water, and they can control the levels. So that building that this pumps is housed in, it's a building about 16 feet by 87 feet, and then the ends are like 39 feet with steps and railings and stuff. So I got the commission to paint a Hillsborough River habitat scenery on the walls of that. That was another big commission too. And that's still around too. So
Any other big ones?
Not that big, you know. Yeah, I did at the old St. Pete Pier. I did some murals out there too, but those are not there anymore.
Because they've changed the pier, right?
And then I also did a big commission for Countryside Mall. I forgot about that. That was in the late 80s. Vaulted ceiling. I painted sky scenes on the vaulted ceilings at the 4 different entrances.
How big was that?
Well, these vaults are like 20 feet by 60 feet. It's like a half curve. So I was up there with scaffolding, 3 sets of scaffolding with spray guns and stuff. And I still have some pictures of those, but I just want to paint now nice size paintings that I can move around. Or if they're really big, you make them out of smaller sections, so you can transport them.
So what does, if you were to take art away from you, what would you be?
Nothing. That's not a good question to really answer. No.
You couldn't imagine yourself being anything else?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, I paint almost every day, you know.
How long?
And when I'm not painting, I'm still thinking about it.
How long should you say you work a day? Just an average day?
3-4 hours.
Walk me through like a beginning of a painting for you. How do you come up with your concept?
I do hundreds of collages. I take pictures of all kinds of stuff. And then after having thousands and thousands of images, and I'll start tearing things up, putting them together, taping things together. Finally, something starts making sense.
Mm-hmm.
But that still doesn't mean I'm gonna do a painting of that. It's just like I said, I have hundreds of these things, and sometimes I go back and forth in time.
Let me ask you this: in your painting, before I go into this, explain to people what a fractile is.
Okay, fractal. So in the early 80s, mathematicians were working with computers. They were trying to visualize mathematical formulas. And accidentally, they discovered a new math, which actually describes nature more efficiently than the traditional geometry, which has the square, rectangle, cone. So fractals were patterns that were created. Okay, there were mathematical equations that form patterns on the screen, computer screen. So they realized that they were like contour drawings, contour outlines of things, kind of like an etch-a-sketch thing, but more organic.
And they repeat in nature.
And they started realizing that these formulas, these mathematical formulas, are repeating the contours of nature. And these go on all the different scales and levels. Like, for instance, some of these patterns look like coastlines from space when you're looking down at the land formations.
Mm-hmm.
Or they look like cloud formations, you know, contours of the cloud, or different things. It's all, you know.
So how do you work that into your work? How do you come up with a concept for a painting for that?
Well, I've always been influenced by the beauty of Florida's environment, you know, the nature, the beautiful colors, plants, sky formations, water. So when I started painting those more directly, I would take fragments of scenery when I made my collage designs, and from the fragments come up with a whole different kind of a composition. So you have different forms compared next to
Show us on this painting what you're talking about.
Well, this one's actually, I probably did about 20 paintings in this, using this particular composition. So this is actually a fractal snowflake, this six-sided symmetrical figure in the middle.
You're talking about here?
Yes. So,
Okay.
so all these series, and that painting up there has a two-sided, but no, some of them are square, that I did like that. So for me, they're like windows, so you see a different scene inside that window and from the outside. And then I try to either compare or contrast the forms that are on the outside of it. So in this case, since I'm also leaning towards making statements about environmental issues, these are man-made pylon concrete forms that were off of Gandy Boulevard. Just before the bridge, there's a boat ramp down there, and they dug up a lot of these concrete pylons from different parts, and they lined the shoreline over there to keep the waves from, you know, hitting the walls.
And I also see the contrast between the rough and the soft.
Right.
You know, it breaks up the painting. I must admit though, I really wasn't catching this till you explained it. The snowflake in the center. I wasn't really catching that, to be honest with you.
Because sometimes they blend in.
Yeah.
So they'll be like a camouflage. And I like that when they melt in, because that also reinforces that idea that in nature, things transform right before your eyes a lot of times, you know. So there's such a subtle difference. And they change with different lights and things, you know, the way that the sunlight.
Is this basically the size you use when you paint?
This is like kind of like a medium size. I don't really work really large at this point because my studio's got so much work,
Mhm.
you know, just sitting around and stuff. So I, 4 by 3 feet, you know, then I can put several of those sections together and make a larger work. But most are within 2 or 3 feet range, you know.
Other than Marcolina's, are you showing anywhere right now?
No,
Is it-
and I don't do any outdoor shows.
So how did your painting end up in the museum? I saw they had a thing, and then your painting was in the. I thought it was there now, but obviously it's not. How did you end up with a painting? in
This is
the
at the
museum?
Tampa Museum?
Yeah, the Tampa Museum.
Well, I had given them that painting. They asked me if I would give them a painting back this is in the mid-80s. But I'm in several other museums. I also have 2 purchase awards from, I had one at the Polk Museum, which is a purchase award from the All Florida Biennial show that they had back in the mid-90s.
Now, how did you get involved with that?
I just submitted the painting because it was an invitational, so you had artists from different.
Do you remember who the judge was for that? Anybody? Associate?
I think it was just the museum committee that picked it.
Okay, you got Polk, you got the Tampa. What's another one? You got some.
Gulf Coast Arts Center. But Gulf Coast Museum is not it's not functioning anymore. So they gave their collection to St. Pete College, I believe. But they also purchased the work from me.
Any people who have bought your work that we would know?
No.
Nobody in any celebrity collections, anything like
No.
that? I'm surprised
I
by
don't
that.
think so.
I'm surprised by that, I really am.
Well, there's not that many celebrities in Tampa, right?
That's true. Other than you.
Yeah.
You know, you were a big influence when I first came here in '93. You know, you met me, I don't know if you even remember, it was Live Art Place, I believe. It was on Zeal. That was in '93.
Artist Unlimited?
I met you and Theo Wuchek.
Okay.
And not at the same time. Did you know him?
Yes. Yeah, Theo was, I had an independent study with him.
Alright. You got anything coming up in the future? Anything we need to know about?
Well, hopefully I'm gonna get into the Skyway show. I had an interview with the curator from Brooklyn. So we'll see how that goes, you know. But I work in 3 different styles. So I do this is the central fractal.
Okay.
And then I have paintings where I have just scenery that's vertical in composition. So you have the scenes going from one area to another. But those are vertical. And then I have another one which is called overall.
Do we have any examples here? Lou?
Yeah, this the snake painting would be an overall.
This one here.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's got more than 2 scenes compared to each other. It's got different other elements, and it's got forms that don't exist within that realm that are put together, like the ropes, you know, breaking up in this one, which adds more tension to the scenes of the snakes.
Is there anything else you would want people to know about you in art? Anything we've left out, you think?
Well, I think art is very important because it can affect social change, hopefully, convey messages. That's what I'm trying to do in my artwork. I'm trying to make a statement of some sort, even if it's being aware of the beauty of nature, so we don't destroy it.
So you're political, in a way.
I think so. Yeah. If that's political. Yeah.
No, I would think so. It would be a little bit political.
Yeah.
So, have you ever done any political paintings? Anything protesting something?
I have, and I haven't really shown much of it except to friends.
And why would that be?
I don't know. We've been talking.
You don't want
about
people to know more about you?
think-
We already know a lot about you by your
Yeah.
art.
No, I'm not concerned about that. It's just the
Is it
time
not
has
as
to-
good as the other art? What's the hope
No.
there then?
No, it's not that.
All right.
But there's no opportunity really to show those other than you setting up somewhere, which might be a good idea actually.
All right.
I don't think any of the people claim that they're doing that, but I don't see a lot of stuff being done. There's a lot of lightweight stuff, where they're like hinting at it. In my opinion, if you're gonna do political art, you gotta, do it real direct. So there's
And
no.
one thing on political art, you don't wanna hit them over the head, you wanna do it subliminally to make them think it's their idea that they're changing, that you're not making.
Yeah, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe you need to hit them over the head too.
They're already hit over the head with political stuff, so you're not really gonna change their mind that way. We already see that.
That's true.
And we can get into it with your vape.
That's true. And they also have short attention spans too, right? So they're not gonna.
So we have two things.
So,
What's the worst day of art you can remember for you?
the worst day? I don't know if I can answer that. The worst day of art.
When you lost all those paintings in Atlanta, wouldn't that be considered one of your worst days of art?
Yeah, but I mean, I wasn't concerned about that. And that was like 5 years later, as I go, gee, I lost those paintings. I never heard from those people again,
Okay.
No, there is no word. The worst day in art is when you're not working.
So, do you think your art will evolve still some more, even at your age? You think you're still going to evolve?
Absolutely.
Now, I asked Rauschenberg that question over at ACC at Theo's thing, and he shook his finger at me and walked out the door.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you must have rubbed him the wrong way or something.
Yeah, I had that effect on a lot of people. So, is there anything else you want us to know about art right now?
Yeah, I feel like, I reached my mature state, and I just want to do a lot of work, and everything takes a long time. Some of my paintings take weeks, months to do, which is frustrating because my ideas are constantly flying. So it would be nice to have some assistance.
So what would you
and
say?
Have a lot of work done, and then I just come in and do, okay, that's good now,
What would you say the state of painting is now? Is art dead, like they say?
Yeah. What's interesting, this interview with Christian Viveros, Fuane, he's a very sharp guy, and I saw some of his videos. So he was talking about, he likes paintings also. He writes books and had some things published in Art in America, and he's a curator at large for different museums. And in one of his interviews, he said that there's two types of painting. There's retinal painting, and then there's paintings that have content. And he senses that there's a shift now towards content. So retinal is more like
eye candy.
You could say eye candy, but there's high levels of eye candy too.
Yeah, that's true.
So they look like maybe interstellar imagery or whatever. But he thinks that there's a shift now towards content because of the times we live in. So artists want to show things that that have form to them, and they can also relate more directly information to the viewers.
So what do you think as we go through the last year and 24? Do you think Ybor is going to have more art venues? More? Do you have any idea?
Ybor, I've seen Ybor go through several cycle waves where there was it was in the 80s, it was the next great city, and they had gallery nights with buses running between downtown museum and
They did that in the
South End
90s too,
galleries. Right. And then, down to Ybor. So there seems to be a appreciation and a push for the arts again, so there's some good galleries that are opening up, and there's.
Do you feel like the city supports the arts in the manner it should?
No.
Right.
No, unfortunately they don't.
Okay.
And that might make the difference in the long run, because that's what happened before several times, is that the energy would pick up and it would start, and then it'd be galleries, and then a number of years later it would start back and down again.
Were you ever in Gasparilla?
Yeah, just a couple of times I was in Gasparilla.
Okay. That's been a couple of years ago?
20 years.
Okay.
So last Gasparilla.
That's about when I did it, about 20 years ago or so, or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Outdoor shows are more like arts fairs and things, I found that with my works especially, you need a more quiet, meditative place so you can look, instead of, and outdoor shows, you've got kids running around and people eating hot dogs and doing anything. There might be somebody making brooms next to you, somebody's working with glass or wind chimes, and you're showing environmental paintings. Well, it's not.
I know you're a big fan of bands at art shows.
Yes.
John doesn't like the loudness, you can't have a conversation. That's what the whole idea of the art show is, right?
Well, it would be nice if people drank and enjoyed and had nice intellectual conversations. And it does happen, but it's in a way, arts is looked at as entertainment, and it can be, but it's also much more than that. It's actually somebody's personal relationship to the world, the way they are.
You're exposing yourself to the world.
Yes, absolutely.
Is there anything else you'd like to get on about anything? Anything in particular?
In my naive way, I would like to think that I can affect the world by painting some of these things that are not, and think of them as, the context that I put work in, comparing, between debris and nature and nice things and not nice things, that conveys a message of some sort, so. Yeah, so it's definitely worth doing, and I enjoy doing it.
Okay. We've been talking with John Gurbacs, his painting here. He's been an artist here for many, many years. And, well, I shouldn't say many, that's not very nice, is it? So, we will be back at Marcolina's with someone else coming soon, so have a wonderful day.